This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Hey guys, Keith Engel for TGI Sports Talk College Football Huddle. How are you guys tonight? Come in with our marching band music. Makes you feel nostalgic for some of the old days, doesn't it? I love it. Hope you guys are great tonight. Another fun weekend of college football to talk about last weekend and coming up this weekend. So, gosh, buckle up. It's going to be a fun time. Listen, I want to thank, again, all the groups that will allow me to share this video later on, all of you that show up live today. Certainly, we welcome your comments. And if I'm sharing it to the groups, guys, you're going to get some really good, relevant content. I'll have Mark Mancini on with me in a few minutes. Guys, tremendous week last week in college football. We had some big upsets. The Pac-12 has been put in its place. By my estimations, BYU is in first place in the Pac-12 South with 3-0 record. So we'll dive into that a little bit. We obviously had Notre Dame, again, not playing that great. We had Georgia playing pretty well. We'll hear from Coach Shane Beamer from South Carolina on that game. He won't be here live, unfortunately, but a lot of other news, too. Lane Kiffin's Instagram account, we'll talk a little bit about that. There's a lot to cover. And as always, I want to welcome in my cohort now on college football, Mr. Mark Mancini from Mancini Media. I was going to say good morning. Good evening and good afternoon, I guess, in your case, Mark. How are you?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm always grateful and blessed to be a part of the two great shows that are sweeping this country. College Football Huddle here and that super grind on Sundays, that NFL show, man. So I'm blessed, man. You're the best, buddy.
Well, we're always glad to have you here. I don't know why my background is still that. Let me see if I can fix my background here quick. I don't like that one. I changed my background for the opening, and then suddenly, well, let me try something else. Talk. You got to tell a joke or something while I'm doing this. That's your job.
Yeah, you don't ever want dead air on it, but I'll tell you, man, I heard the opening, and boy, you talk about the topsy-turvy, what happened last week and everything. The first shocker is Western Michigan coming into Pitt and beating Pitt in that wild one, 44-41. So once you think Pitt turns the corner, would go undefeated till they start, getting in the ACC round, and they lay an egg. So go figure. Hopefully they can turn it around against New Hampshire this week.
Well, I hope they can pull that around. If they can't, then it's going to get a little ugly around there. That's for sure. A lot of big stuff. I mean, gosh, we'll start with the Pac-12 a little bit. I mean, my sleeper team and your sleeper team. I know you like Herm Edwards in Arizona State, and they laid an egg with 16 penalties against BYU. A BYU team that I said in the open seems to be the best team in the Pac-12 South right now. They've beaten 3 teams, and they've got more wins than any team against that the Pac-12 than anybody. And of course, my sleeper and kind of I was hoping Chip Kelly had kind of turned the corner, but they pulled us. UCLA pulls a stinker and blows 2 7-point leads and allows 2 75-yard drives in the last 7 minutes to lose to Fresno State. I mean, the Pac-12 all of a sudden is Oregon and everybody else again.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. And we'll start with your UCLA team. I mean, I've seen this dog and pony show for quite a while. I mean, even before Chip Kelly got there. I mean, years back they beat a Texas team, and then the next week they lay down against a San Diego State or something. And, now you beat an LSU and everybody walking around with the sissy blue T-shirts that Ed Orgeron made famous, and now you get a Fresno State team and everybody's saying, well, wait a minute, Fresno State almost beat Oregon. Come on, you were favored by 23 points in that game. And you get in a shootout with them, you come up short, and here we are again. And, talking about ASU, you're not going to win games creating penalties like that. And Herm Edwards is, he had a game like this last year against USC, opening game, and they had him down, and all of a sudden, the last 2 minutes or 3 minutes, USC started to make a comeback and rolled them. So, you can't struggle on the road. They got to fix it, and I think Herm Edwards will get back to the drawing board, man. They're not going to forget this game against BYU.
Yeah, he's going to have to. I mean, sticking in the Pac-12 a little bit. I mean, these losses hurt Oregon as much as they hurt anybody else, because for the Pac-12 to finally get another representative in the Final Four college football playoff, they need that league to be stronger than what they're showing right now. I mean, again, UCLA looked great against LSU. Maybe it speaks to where LSU is. I don't know, but right now the conference is not strong enough for Oregon probably to put up a strong, even with that great win at Ohio State. They're going to have to really win out and win impressively probably to have playoff considerations at the end of the season. Not
only that, when you look at a team like Cincinnati and then you look at Oregon and everybody goes, well, Oregon, they beat Fresno State, they beat Ohio State, and they beat Stony Brook. I mean, come on, these aren't actually world beaters here, but some of these teams that are in the middle of the pack in the AP poll here, they could take out an Oregon school here, because I don't think really, other than the Ohio State game, Oregon hasn't really been tested themselves. So, maybe we saw USC last year. Everybody was feeling giddy out here in Los Angeles when they were rolling everybody and heading into the Pac-12 championship, and Washington couldn't show up. And here came Oregon. They thought, oh, we'll just bring our undefeated record into this thing. And, well, you saw what Oregon did to them. So I think when you look at the rest of the country, looking at the Pac-12, they kind of look at it with maybe eyes wide shut. It's a good segue into the Pac-12. Obviously, Oklahoma still ranked in the top 4, but a very unimpressive win again for them. Second one in 3 weeks over a Nebraska team that's not that good. The Pac-12 and Iowa State has kind of taken. Well, Iowa State could be still in the running for that conference, obviously. But again, for the Pac-12 to get a representative into this playoff, it's going to be difficult if Oklahoma, continues to play these keep inferior teams in games like they have. I mean, they need some strength at the top here. And not only that, when you talk to USC fans, they tell you about the loss to Stanford. Well, Stanford's a very good team, and the week before Stanford was ruled, and I don't know, and the whole situation at USC. And I know we talked about it on Sunday. You got to open up your wallet, man. You got to pay to play in this college football scenario here. And if USC doesn't want to pay, and they want to bring in paper cup salesmen and car salesmen to coach their team, well, it's going to show. I mean, this is a team that hasn't won a championship in 18 years. For a big school like this, put up or shut up, I always say. And, we'll find out. This interim coach, Dante, they might rally around with him. They beat a Washington State team. I got to see more of it, but we'll find out at the end of the year what they're going to do. Maybe they'll give him a good contract if he finishes above the Mendoza line. Good point. That's the problem. Again, we talked about it, and that's how they ended up with Helton for so long as it was. He came as an interim and did okay, and they felt they had to keep him for continuity. And I don't think they want to find themselves in that same. Not that they want to lose. Don't get me wrong, but if they run the table or have a really good remainder of the season, and I mean, you might find maybe he'll turn into the next great coach. I don't know, but do you really want to go through the same process again a second time now in a row? I think the problem at USC is they want somebody that they can control. You start bringing in the Petersons, you start bringing in the Fickles, you start bringing in the Sabins, the Smarts, the Sweeneys. These are guys that are going to want complete control of your organization. They're not going to really respect you as an athletic director. They'll tell you to back up 6 feet, let me run the program, go take care of the volleyball, the underwater basket weaving events at the school. And that's the problem here. Yeah, I agree with you there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. The other game, there's some other games of note from last weekend. I got to play this clip. Georgia looked really strong. Again,
And I don't think Rick Sherlock's here tonight. I wish he was. He's probably waiting for his Philly cheesesteak. I think I said cheesecake one time. I don't think he wants a Philly cheesecake, but he's probably home waiting for that to come in the mail. I don't know. So
we're gonna get it out to him, man. We start WWDB here October 14th. We've pushed it back a couple weeks, so cheesesteaks will be flying out of Philly going that way.
Well, I do know that Rick will see this show at some point. He'll watch it, and I do want to play this quick clip because Shane Beamer from South Carolina's head coach had, I think, the best clip of the year so far when he gets asked, a silly question about Georgia's scheme. So let's just watch this real quick. And
obviously they've got a really good defense.
It's a lot of fun.
What were they doing to maybe make things go on the offensive side and maybe being able to get a push?
Who was doing?
Georgia's defensive line. What were they doing to maybe make things difficult on the offense?
They've got like 100 5-star football players on their defense. They have a defensive lineman that weighs 340 pounds and runs better than everybody on this call. They've got 5-star defensive backs. They're big and physical and fast. I mean, other than that, they're really freaking good. That's why they have the top defense in the country. They're hard to run the football on. So there wasn't some magical scheme they came out with tonight. They got 5-star recruits everywhere, and they play really physical. Damn. And Ben, I didn't mean to be short. I just know they're not doing anything special on defense. They're really freaking good. And that is a fantastic front seven and a fast and physical defensive line. But scheme-wise, no. They line up, say, we're better than you, and we're physical, and come beat us. And that's what they did tonight, like they do every week. So I didn't mean to snap.
My favorite cut of the week is Shane Beamer. What?
After an asteroid
hold on, let me get rid of that.
Vistaprint helped me pivot hot yoga.
Hold on one second. There we go. I had to get rid of that sound. So, yeah, it was my favorite cut of the week, Mark. And you know what? South Carolina is undermanned against Georgia, and to say that they have some special scheme to stop you tonight is Georgia showed what they're made of. And, they're depending on the poll you're looking at, they're 2 or they're 3. And they probably showed they may be the best team in the country because Alabama looks beatable all of a sudden.
Well, he might be right. He might be trying to sell some papers to run for governor.
He might be. Do you think Georgia has showed enough? I mean, again, look at Alabama was a 2-point conversion away from at least being in overtime against Florida. I called it last week. I thought they might beat them. I mean, to me, they were in position to beat them, so it's good enough for me to declare victory in my mind. But is Alabama? Do you think this was just a wake-up call for Alabama and a speed bump, or do you think they're vulnerable?
Well, I think sometimes the problem with Alabama, and if you look at their seasons, years past, even in the SEC championship game too, they start out slow, they go back and forth, and then they start to realize, well, you only got a few minutes to get this thing going here, and then they turn on the gas. So I think it was a wake-up call, but I'll tell you one thing, and a lot of people will tell me about the USC run years back with Leinart and Bush and Carroll and everything. I don't think I've ever seen a run like what Alabama's doing, is churning out quarterbacks, going back to McCarron, and you see the Mac Jones and the Tuas and all these guys that keep coming out, and now you got Bryce Young there. I'll tell you, Nick Saban is a genius, man. I'll tell you, even on his worst day, he's better than a lot of squads on their best day.
What's your thought about Bryce Young? Do you feel like he's the Heisman favorite at this point? And it's hard. I mean, we're only seeing 3 games, but I think our early favorites have fallen by the wayside. I'll tell you the kid I like after you give me your comments on.
I think when you go to Alabama, I think you're mentally prepared to play in the pros. I think you're I don't want to say you're more educated to pick up the playbook a lot faster than some of these other guys at some of the other universities, but I think the education you're getting, if you took this and looked at it from an NBA standpoint, to learn from a Larry Bird, a Dr. J, the late Kobe, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, compared to learning from maybe Kyrie Irving or somebody, you're getting a top education hands-on across the board. And I think what Nick Saban's done is mentally prepare these people to play in the pros. And, if you go to New England right out of Alabama, it's almost like a pipeline right over there. So, Belichick's cut out of that same mold and everything, and I just think you have an upper hand. And look at the players, not even the quarterbacks that come out of Alabama. Just look at the players come out of there compared to some of the quarterbacks that have come out of USC going into the pros. It's a whole different ball game, man. I just think they're just mentally tough. And they're just ready to play professional football when you graduate from Alabama.
Well, I mean, you're playing the SEC. It's almost like playing, AAA, baseball below the NFL. Obviously, we always have these debates. Can the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Alabama Crimson Tide? Well, yes, the worst NFL team is always going to beat the best NFL or NCAA team. It's men against boys still, regardless of how you look at it. But the SEC is the next best thing to the NFL right now. I mean, they've got the best team. I mean, we've talked about Alabama. We've talked about Georgia, and Georgia may very well be better than Alabama, but they've got teams to watch too. Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's doing a great job. 61-21 win last week. Matt Corral, his quarterback, is my guy for the Heisman right now. I had Sam Howell early, and he's kind of fell out of the race. But this league has gotten really, really, really deep.
Well, not only that, if you want, the Pac-12 always, stands there on their high horse and says, nobody's paying attention to us out here. Well, if you put all your games on at 10:30 at night in Alabama, they're exhausted. They've gone home for the evening. They're not watching anything. If anything, they might be up there watching the local news. But you put you put a Stanford USC game on. The thing ends at 2:15 in the morning back east time. You put another game on late at night. Fresno State and UCLA. If you're trying to garner people to watch that and try to get these voters to sway their decision on you, who's standing up till 1 in the morning to watch that thing conclude?
That's a good point.
The problem.
Yeah, and they've put all they've labeled it that. I had trouble coming up with a name last week, but they call it the Pac-12 After Dark. That's what they want to build this as.
Start the games at 9 in the morning out here, so that way then wake up early, have a Denver omelet, you have your coffee or sourdough toast, minus the butter, and that way then the East Coast can see your games at the same time they're watching an Alabama game or getting ready for an Alabama game.
Well, they get all excited about all these, super games, and there are some super games and super happenings that happen in this Pac-12 After Dark series. But the problem is nobody except the West Coast sees it. I find out about it in the morning. So again, back to the SEC again. Arkansas is a big surprise there. You got A&M who's strong. This league is top to bottom. Before I move on from Ole Miss. Interesting story. Also, Lane Kiffin has cleared out his Instagram account. I don't know if you saw this story today, but Lane Kiffin's Instagram account now consists of his quarterback, Matt Corral, maybe moving up to one of the favorites for the Heisman, and one Arch Manning, who is, I believe, in 9th grade now, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he's in 10th. I'm not sure. He's been recruited for the last 2 years. The next great Manning, Lane Kiffin, is going all out to try to get him to come where his uncle Eli went and his granddad went to college.
I'll tell you one thing. I love Lane Kiffin. I liked him at USC. And he's flamboyant. He kind of reminds me of John Gruden.
Yeah.
He's married to like a supermodel. He goes to these programs. He goes to, Alabama, kind of has a tiff and a taff with, Nick Saban. He ends up leaving and, he just resurfaces. He takes his traits all over the, the SEC and, he goes to Florida. I mean, you got to like this guy. And, I always say if you want to turn your program around, just give him a boatload of money. He'll turn it around. He reminds me of the guy, in some ways that was a little flamboyant in himself too. I don't know if he had the supermodel wife with Steve Spurrier.
I think his wife was okay. I don't know if she was a supermodel, but she wasn't, he wasn't going to kick her shoes out from under his bed. I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah. Those are great comparisons, though. I think for Lane Kiffin, they're all have the same type of personality, right down to the visors. They're all wearing visors out there. So watch out for that Ole Miss team. If they play any defense, and they're playing better defense right now, this team's going to be tough. Are they ready to beat the Alabamas and the Georgias? Well, we'll find out.
I talked to a good friend of mine, Evie Van Pelt, that covers the Rebel Milwaukee. You got to get her on your show, man. She's great and covers Ole Miss and everything. And I'll tell you, keep your eyes on these guys. You're absolutely right. Ole Miss is a tough team, man. And this is a team that I've always said, middle of the pack team. They can smash any Pac-12 team on any given day too.
Very interesting. Very interesting here. Rick Sherlock has showed up. He says, "Hey, Mark, how about those Bulldogs?" Rick, make sure you go back and watch the beginning of the show if you weren't here, because I played the clip of Shane Beamer after the Georgia game and after they got their clocks cleaned by your Bulldogs. So we'll give some credit now.
Yeah.
Because they played Clemson, obviously, they played and won, but they didn't score any offensive touchdowns. Now they're scoring touchdowns against real teams. And I think Georgia may be the best team in the country. We'll see. And Rick also says Manning will sign with Georgia, but I guess,
Wow.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, I think the big question, Rick, is, they get another SEC championship game, and it's against Alabama. This time you got to get the job done.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah. Kirby Smart's a great coach, but Kirby Smart, if again, right now, I think he's got the better team than Alabama. We'll see.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give Rick some kudos here. I think his team might be better than Alabama, but as you said, Mark, if he doesn't get it done this time, he's going to start getting that label about not being able to win the big one.
Yeah, if he doesn't win it this time, consider him a bridesmaid.
Yeah. Talking again, well, we touched on this last week too about talking about coaches, right? Getting that label. Let's switch to Chip Kelly just for a second. We talked last Sunday about the fact that he tied Nuke Rockne, and he had a great quote because we said, where does that leave him? But you know what? I give Chip Kelly credit because he was asked the question, where does it leave him among Notre Dame coaches? And he says, I'm the winningest coach in Notre Dame history without a national championship. So he knows his standing, and Chip Kelly's kind of got that label that he can't get over the hump and win the big one. He's been there. He's been in position a couple of times, in his career. And it's time for him, I think, too, to get something.
I like Chip Kelly, but you know what? Sometimes the grass always greener on the other side. And if he just stayed at Oregon, he saw the big money. He saw the NFL, went to Philly. I don't know what he tried to do in Philly, but they kind of tuned him out, threw a cheesesteak on the way out at him. Yeah. And then you saw what happened in, San Francisco. And now at UCLA, he's trying to, build that program from the ground up. But I think what he should have done from the beginning was he should have stayed at Oregon. It was a great foundation. The structure was there. But sometimes we chase the money, and that becomes the root of all evil.
Yeah, and Chip's I thought he'd found his landing place, as we talked about earlier, UCLA, and that's not working out so good. So let's talk about a couple other games quickly before we move on from last week. Cincinnati impressed me again. We're going to talk about the top 25. Again, another team passes them, and they sit there at 8 and don't move a bit. The coaches poll with a really, I think, an impressive win over Indiana. They fell behind 14-0 on the road. Really didn't show much in the first quarter and a half, almost the first half, and they come up with a pretty impressive victory at 38-24. So Cincinnati's still hanging back there. They got a big game in a couple of weeks at Notre Dame, and that's going to make or break their season. What's your thoughts on Cincinnati? And
I've always liked Cincinnati. They've always reminded me of a Bruce Springsteen song: 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Every time you think they're going to turn the corner, they just something goes wrong with this team. Yeah. Years ago, I remember they were on a run, and I think Pitt came in there and took them out and surprised them. And they always have these surprises. But you're right. I've circled the wagons. I think they can go into Notre Dame in South Bend and beat the Irish. I really do. But they're going to have to bring their A game, and that will give them instant national recognition. and maybe move up the polls here because I really thought they were, good last year too. They just, if you don't get in that top 4, it's a big problem. And that's why I'm always saying that you need to get this thing into a top 12 where you can bring 12 schools into the mix here and roll the dice.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get there sooner than later. I think, you may see that. You may see it as soon as next year, I think. They just need to work. You can work out the TV details and get it done. One other game I got to talk about. You were on the wrong side of this one. So I don't mean to talk about it just because you're on the wrong side of it, but there's also another topic I want to talk about within this game. Penn State and Auburn. It was a great football game, I thought. Penn State showed their mettle, with the whiteout, and Auburn gave them all they could handle, I thought. And I got to give kudos to Penn State. And you know what? This Big Ten is looking, Ohio. It isn't Ohio State and everybody else anymore because Penn State's looking good. Michigan's 3-0, and I understand, we've been there before with Jim Harbaugh, and he's like 19-0 at home in September, and that's all he's played his home games against non-conference schools so far. Big game for them this weekend against Rutgers, but still it's a big game. I was really good. The league is much better right now.
Well, I'll tell you, Penn State, and I go back to Penn State when Joe Paterno always had them right there. I mean, and then we saw after the Paterno era, they kind of put it together. Then they kind of slipped back a little, and now they're trying to get back again to the. But I just this conference to me is. Every year somebody seems to take the reins, and the teams you think that are going to do something end up going back a few notches. I don't know, man. It was an impressive win. The whiteout back, it's just I couldn't believe it. I thought Auburn would go in there and beat them, but they came up short. It was a hell of a game, but got to give props where props is due, and Penn State did it. But I need to see a little bit more of Penn State. You know. That's where I'm at with this program. I mean, back in the day, like you said, with Joe Paterno, you knew what you were getting with this team. You were getting consistency. It's been a roller coaster ride. It's been peaks and valleys with this school for quite a few years, ever since Paterno, was let go of that. So I don't know. Will they get it to with that level? I don't know. I mean, we always thought with Alabama, with Bear Bryant, could somebody take it to that level? And we saw, the guys that came through, and the only guy that's done it is Saban. He's put it took
about 30 years for it to happen too. So
it might take that long to get the Penn State program up to that level where we're getting consistency. Not 1 year, 2 years. I need to see about 5 to 10 years of a stable program going to consecutive bowl games or bowl games all in wherever they're going. But I need to see bowl games consistently with this team.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about this game, and there was an incident in this game that really irks me. So I'm going to jump topics a little bit, and I want to go to the targeting calls in college football. I mean, I'm all for safety. I'm all for this. I think they're a little harsh with the, one time and you're out of the game, one targeting. They got to issue warnings. They got to do something. And some of the calls, Mark, there was a call in this game, and fortunately it didn't have anything to do with deciding the outcome of the game. I don't know if you saw this play, but I guess it was Auburn was driving for a touchdown.
Right.
They're about the 2-yard line, and the running back is kind of scrambling and turning around, trying to dive himself towards the end zone. Well, the defensive guy's job there is to keep him out of the end zone, right? And the guy's moving all over the place. He can't target him. He didn't hit him with his head. He hit him with his shoulder. And all he's trying to do is make sure he keeps him out of the end zone. He was not trying to hurt the guy, which is what the targeting rule is for. Blatant, if you're launching yourself like a missile with your head, then I'm all for these targeting calls and throw these guys out of the game that are just trying to cause mayhem out there. But this was just a football play. Some of these targeting calls, sometimes it's just football. And I think college football's got to step back and take a look at this rule because it's impacting a lot of games, and a lot of really good players are not finishing really big games.
Yeah, and I think what the problem is sometimes the referees kind of figure they're part of the game. That they want to be seen, they want to be heard, And this is a problem that's going across everything. You know, you can attribute this to the way the NBA is being played these days. I mean, we grew up where, you know, the bad boys, the Pistons would knock each other around, and you'd fight under the boards and bang each other. And you have the clothesline of McHale with Kurt Rambis and the Celtics and Laker things. And now we've got this, if you touch somebody, you have a foul. And now it's been brought over to the NFL. You can't celebrate in the NFL. You can't do this. You can't have fun. And the NFL pretty much stands sometimes for the no fun league. And now league, contributed into the college football. I mean, it's crazy where, you know, people can dictate the outcome of games. And you're right. You know, I saw it too. And I said to myself, if this comes back to bite it, I mean, you know, that's unfortunate. But, you know, they don't realize one game, foul here that doesn't go in the favor. There's no instant replay on this stuff to really scrutinize this. It can change the outcome, whether you're in the four going to the college dance, or you're on the outside looking in.
Yeah, well, there is replay. They look at these things, but they still get them wrong. They looked at this thing for 5 minutes, and I'm like, how did you still call that targeting?
Well, I've seen it in baseball the other day where they you know, it was blatantly the guy was out, and they said, well, he was safe. So I mean, I don't know what they're looking at. Maybe everybody's looking at the same play and not really looking outside the box here, or maybe somebody doesn't want to go against the other two by basically saying, well, if I do now, he's going to be called on the carpet after this game. I don't know, but they really got to look at this, and it's unfortunate because it's really killing the game of college football in more ways than one.
Yeah, I want to keep guys safe, but again, the rules gotten out of control. I mean, I go back to the first weekend of the season. We talked about Ole Miss earlier. They played Louisville. In the first half, there must have been 10 targeting calls. I'd never seen anything like it, and some of them were legitimate calls, but some of this ticky-tack stuff they got to start letting go. I mean, geez, good grief.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Anyway, before I lose you, let's move on. I want to talk about let's talk about some of the big games coming up this weekend before we run out of time with you. I mean, not as big as a schedule of big games, but there are a few. We talked about Notre Dame a little bit ago. We're going to find out, you know, we talk about a lot. I talk about a lot. You are what your record says you are in the pros, probably. It's a little different. 3-0 for Notre Dame and 3-0 in the pros is maybe not quite the same thing, right? Notre Dame has not been terribly impressive against, Toledo.
It's almost like having a 3-0 lead in hockey. It's the worst score to have.
Yeah, I'm not sure how good we're going to find out, I think, this weekend how good Notre Dame is they're playing a neutral field game at Soldier Field against Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin lost a tough game to Penn State, but this is a good Wisconsin team and a good
Bucky Badger. I was given a blanket, man, and I still got it somewhere around here. Bucky Badger.
So, what do you think about this game? I like
the Badgers, man. I like the Badgers on a neutral field there. I mean, I really do. I think, anything can happen. I know, I hate to say this, but I'll lay it out there, and they'll say, well, Mancini will throw it out there, and that's that, and he won't, renegade on his word on it. But I don't know. I look at Notre Dame maybe the same way I look at Ohio State. Hype trains, man. What have you done for me lately, man?
Yeah.
Good quarterbacks have come out of there, but I need to see results. We saw last year when Notre Dame got in there and it was bye-bye birdie. So we'll find out, Hey, the TV networks love Notre Dame and Ohio State because it's instant credibility. Everybody follows them, big road shows and everything. But sometimes it's, hype trains, man. What have you done for me lately?
It looks like Rick is ready to take a double or nothing bet with you. He likes the Fighting Irish in that game against Wisconsin.
Shoot, I'll be giving cheesesteaks in Philadelphia every week then. Rick's going to clean me out.
I'll tell you what.
The Peppers.
I'm going to take Notre Dame in this game myself for one reason. I want them to be undefeated when they play Cincinnati because that's going to boost Cincinnati's profile when they beat Notre Dame in South Bend. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. a couple other games. I think all of a sudden the Texas A&M Arkansas is a really, really good game. Arkansas is playing some great football. I'm trying to think of their coach's name. He came from Boise State last.
Oh yeah, what's his name?
I'll get it for you here in a second.
He's a good coach.
Sam Pittman. Oh, he didn't come from. Yeah, he came from Boise State. No, he went to Auburn. Sorry.
Didn't he?
No, Pittman came from elsewhere. I'm thinking of the Auburn coach. He came from Boise State. But still, Sam Pittman's doing a great job at Arkansas with a nice win against Texas. They won big last week. This is a big matchup for both of these teams. Texas A&M has got title hopes of their own this year. How do you see this game going?
Well, I've always liked Texas A&M, and the one guy that really put them on the map years ago, Johnny Manziel there. And when you look at the program there, man, I'll tell you, I've always liked them. I thought they were good a few years. They should have got in that Fatal Four, but they didn't because, like I said, people like the big schools that travel well. So, but I don't know, man. This is a toss-up. But if I had if I had a gun to my head on it, I'd probably go Texas A&M.
Yeah, this game is, it's not really a home. It's kind of a neutral field, but it's in Arlington, Texas, right? It's at Jerry Jones's.
Irving, Texas.
Yeah, I almost said Jerry Jones Memorial Stadium. That wouldn't be right. That'd be wrong to say, but.
Jerry Jones's World.
Jerry World, right? That's where they're playing this game. So you know what? I have liked Arkansas, and they're kind of called the home team in this game. This is a home game for Arkansas, which kind of stinks for me that they don't get to play this big a game on their own field, right? It is a toss up, but I'm going to go with Arkansas in this game just because I like the way they're playing football, and they look like they could be one of the big stories of the year.
Yeah, this game's going to be. You can cut it with knife, man. I'll tell you. It's going to be a close one, and like you said, it can go either way. But I'm going to kind of lean towards Texas A&M.
Anthony Price is asking about the Stanford UCLA game. I was going to bring that up maybe later on, but we'll jump to it.
Yeah.
He's asking the question. He's like Stanford beating UCLA. It's going to be tough. UCLA's got to be a little deflated. We can go one of two ways, right? They get back to the practice field and pull themselves up by their bootstraps to use a cliche. Or they can kind of just wilt and have a hangover. And Stanford's playing some pretty good football after losing to Kansas State and their opener. They're playing some pretty good football.
Well, I like Charbonneau. I like the UCLA running game going and everything. But I'll tell you, playing this in Stanford, man, Stanford's feeling pretty darn good about themselves after they, put up quite a few points on USC. And they probably could have put up 70 if they kept their foot to the gas. This is where UCLA has problems going up north. I've seen these kind of games where UCLA's gone to Cal and Stanford, and they've had problems. So I'm going to take Stanford in this one.
I think I will stay with you on that one. And again, not a lot of big games, but I think there's some interesting matchups. Michigan undefeated, 3-0. We've seen Jim Harbaugh here before, as I said earlier. Rutgers. It's not a football factory, but Greg Schiano's got that team 3-0. The offense finally got rolling this week. They looked the offense. Them and Syracuse put the setback offensive football about 40 years of first half 2 weeks ago, but they are 3-0, and I think Rutgers might push Michigan a little bit in this game. I don't think they'll win it, but I think they will push Michigan a little bit.
Well, I've always liked Jim Harbaugh. He's taken his lumps against Ohio State, can't beat them, but he's brought the respectability, and now he's got them undefeated. I think they keep the trend intact, and more power to him. I'd like to see him do something and get in that fatal four-way here, and roll the dice. It's been when you look at Harbaugh, he's built programs across the board. When you looked at the San Francisco 49ers, built that. Yeah. And, it's taken a while at Michigan, but he's kind of laying his foundation there. When I look at what Harbaugh is doing there, it kind of reminds me of what Gruden's doing with the Raiders. He kind of tore it up from the inside out and doing it his way. So keep your eyes on the Wolverines, my friend.
So you think Michigan, and as the banner says, you think Michigan and Harbaugh are finally for real and will make some noise in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I will put my stamp on that one. I really like him, and he's a class act. I had a chance to meet him years back, and just before he got married. And he's a great guy. I like his upbeat personality, and man, I'd play for him.
Yeah, I like Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he's had a tough time there. I want to see a few conference games before I kind of go overboard, but I want to say hi real quick, and I know we got to get to some more games before we let you go, but
yeah.
I want to say hi quickly to John Gonzalez. John runs the Sports Authority group, and what a great group. I got to tell you, Mark, if you don't belong to the Sports Authorities, go to Facebook.
I got to get in there. Let me get in there,
and follow the site. And John's got some great stuff. He lets us share the shows.
I love you, brother. You're like my agent, man. You just open the door.
He's a good man, John Gonzalez. He won't come up for our little happy hour, though. I can't get him to drive up from the big city here to Smallbany, but we'll get him up there. And John likes Harbaugh's coaching acumen as well. So thanks for joining us tonight, John.
Great guy.
Big game. You know what? Again, it doesn't sound like a big game, but Clemson is really struggling along. I mean, they struggled last week with a Georgia Tech team that's not that good. Only beat. I think Georgia Tech was in position to win that game late, or at least tie the game late. They've got an NC State team that's undefeated this weekend and maybe a bit underrated, and they're playing at NC State. Is this a spot Clemson needs to be careful?
Could be a trap game, man.
Yeah,
could be one of those games you got to watch out. The Wolfpack, man. This is it could be a trap. You gotta. These are the kind of games you circle when you're on a nice little roll. And I know Clemson's been struggling of late, and they've been not where Dabo Swinney wants them, but you got to watch out for these games, especially on the road.
Yeah, I misspoke. NC State is 2-1, but it's still the point is still germane here. They got to be careful. I think Clemson will win another nail biter. Again, I said earlier after they lost, and they didn't look good. I mean, Georgia won the game. Neither team looked great on offense, obviously. And I thought Clemson needed to win games by 40 points the rest of the way out to have a chance at that playoff, and because they're not going to move up out of that nine spot, just squeaking by some of these second division teams that like they've been doing here. So
exactly. And that's where when you're going into a game like this, you got to circle the wagons and say, hey guys, we got to have our heads on a swivel here and make sure we're paying attention, because the minute we're not paying attention, we're going to suffer a loss, and they're going to be 3-1.
Yeah. Well, let's do this, since I know we're going to lose you here in a couple of minutes. There's some other games that I like, but let's do this. Let's do our dead solid lock and our surprise pick of the week. So give me your dead solid lock pick this week.
Well, I think it's Pitt over New Hampshire.
Wow, you're really going off the. Don't go too far on a limb there, Mark.
Yeah. I mean, you got to wake up after you lose to Western Michigan. This is the lock in Pittsburgh, man. Definitely. You need to take care of business, even though there's not really a rivalry here. This is the lock. And don't be surprised. Man, oh, man. I wouldn't be a bit surprised the game we just talked about. North Carolina beating Clemson. North Carolina State beating Clemson.
That's a good call right there. I'm going to give you my dead solid lock pick. And it's Fresno State to just annihilate a bad UNLV team on Friday night here. Fresno State has now moved into the top 25 in the coaches poll. So they've done, you know what? That's a good football team, and they can score some points. So
yeah, and they weren't too bad years ago. I mean, they were right in the middle of this whole thing with Carr and all those guys.
Yeah, and my surprise is going to be, don't be surprised if Rutgers is in a position to beat Michigan late in that game. I'm not saying they'll win the game, but they'll be in position to win that game late.
Little Appalachian State beating Michigan, huh?
Rutgers is a better program than people give it credit for, especially when Greg Schiano's at the helm there. It's the one place he can win football games. So
you're absolutely right.
So what else, Mark? We got a couple minutes left, or 1 minute left with you. Give me one other takeaway you want to either got from last week or something you want us to look for this week.
Well, I'll tell you, I think what you're looking at with Stanford, they're starting to put it together now. USC, I think they get the UCLA, and then they got some other games down the line, the Oregons, the Arizona States. I think Shaw's doing a great job. Keep your eyes on those guys down the stretch. Stanford's going to have something to say before this is all said and done.
Great. Awesome. Mark, great stuff tonight. Always great stuff. I look forward to seeing you Sunday on our Sunday Stream of Consciousness. We'll be looking at some of these games that we talked about in the news of the college football world, as well as professional football. And gosh, we're getting the baseball playoffs too. We got a lot going on Sunday for sure.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Keith, your network is second to none. You got great listeners. I love you. You're a brother, a mentor, and a friend to me. And I'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday with all these great listeners.
Absolutely. Give us one big plug on the way out. What do we got to listen for from Mark Mancini this week?
Well,
Anything?
October 14th, WWDB AM 860 out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Marianne Costello, Sal Tartaglia, and myself will be ripping up Philly. We'll be talking Ben Simmons wants out of Philadelphia. Trying to find out from Doc Rivers what's going on that. Are the Eagles for real? And we'll start previewing the Flyers. Not the
hockey season,
Bullets, but the Flyers.
Oh my gosh, hockey season! I got too much to cover now. My gosh! All right, Mark. Thanks for coming in tonight. We'll talk to you next week.
God bless you, my brother. I love you.
Love you. Bye bye. All right, guys. Mark Mancini from Mancini Media. Always fun to have Mark on the shows. We're going to continue along here. So I know I missed a few. I'm going to go back, actually, before we go on and do anything else. I know I missed a few things. I want to welcome you guys. I didn't get a chance to say hi to Dave and Mickey. Thanks for popping in, guys. Rick, we said hello to you. I know Anthony Price, thanks for coming in tonight. We got you your pick on Stanford and UCLA. And, of course, John Gonzalez, again, thanks for coming in. Rick had asked me about, I do realize it's a little off topic, but I want to let him know that I had a really good interview with Ed White yesterday. Ed White from the Vikings and the San Diego Chargers. I know Rick is interested in from a Viking standpoint, as he's a big Vikings fan. But that interview will air live on tape Friday. I'll do my intro and closing remarks live. But I taped the interview with Ed White last night. So, and a big star, by the way, to turn this back to college football. Ed White was an All-American defensive lineman. Rick, you probably knew that. I was surprised when I did a little research on Ed that Ed played was an All-American defensive lineman in college at Cal. So that was we had a lot of fun last night. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and we'll certainly talk about it more. Guys, let's take a quick look at the coaches poll right now. So, and guys, any comments you want to bring them up. We'll talk about whatever you guys got to chat about. I'm going to go through the games this weekend a little bit more in depth. I might have a topic or two left to talk about that I didn't get to with Mark. We'll see. The big movers this week up. Penn State moves up 4 in the coaches poll to number 8. Again, past Cincinnati. Cincinnati sits. In fact, Cincinnati falls a spot to 9. Cincinnati does nothing but keep. Again, they're 3-0. They keep winning big. I know they haven't played a lot, but that wasn't a bad Indiana team that they beat on the road. It's a Big Ten team, a Power 5 conference team. Cincinnati's up their non-conference league schedule. They've done what they've been asked to do by the powers that be and pick people to play in these playoff games. And Cincinnati right now is not being rewarded for it. Is Indiana as good as last year? The record says they aren't, but the core of that team from last year is still there. It's a good win for Cincinnati, but Penn State playing great football has moved by them, as did Iowa, as did Clemson and Oregon. So it's 4 teams now have passed Cincinnati, but Cincinnati's lost no games. Won everything big, and 4 teams have passed them since we started the season. Another reason we shouldn't have preseason polls, but maybe it doesn't matter because Cincinnati would be still ranked probably where they are. They just don't get the love that they deserve. Other movers this week. Ole Miss moves up 3 spots to number 13. Watch out for Ole Miss, guys. Really good. I mean, Lane Kiffin's one of the great offensive minds in any league. The NFL, the CFL, the NCAA, wherever you want to look. Lane Kiffin is a brilliant offensive mind. He's had trouble with defenses. Right now, Mississippi's got a much better defense. and Matt Corral may be moving towards a leader, one of the leading candidates anyway for the Heisman Trophy this year. I love what he's doing there at Ole Miss. BYU, the leading. I joked earlier with Mark Mancini that BYU is the best team in the Pac-12 South. They're 3-0 against the Pac-12 South as an independent. They beat up Arizona last week pretty good. Arizona State. Arizona State shot themselves in the foot. I think they had 4 turnovers and 16. That's right, guys. 16 penalties. You can't win like that. Check the comments here. Bama will be on top when it's all said and done. You know, it's going to be hard for them to lose. This was a spot. This might have been a spot. Every team has a spot where they got a chance to get beat. And this could have been the chance people had to knock Alabama off. We'll see. I think they're going to have a tough time with Georgia, as I talked about earlier in the show. Some other big movers. Arkansas moves up 6 spots to number 18. Michigan up 6 spots to number 19. Michigan State dismantled Miami, my mostly beloved Miami Hurricanes. It wasn't even close. I don't know what the final was. Do I have it in front of me here? What was the final of that game? I don't even want to look. 38-17. Guys, I don't even feel like it was that close. But Michigan State moves up to number 21. They were out of the top 25. And Fresno State moves up 16 spots. They were 41st ranked last week. They're up into the top 25. The big fallers or losers this week were Florida dropping only 2 spots to number 11. Again, Florida, you know, the thing about playing the SEC, if you're 1 loss and you win that championship, it's just to say Florida runs the table and plays Alabama again. I think they can, can't they? Before I say that, I should find out that they play in different divisions. I don't remember. Somebody help me out. Sure. They play in separate divisions. That's what I thought. So Florida could theoretically get to the SEC championship game, beat Alabama this time, and be in the playoff consideration. John's a Hurricane guy shaking his head. So am I. God, it's awful right now. The program is going backwards. You know, before I go on with the big losers last week, Miami's a big loser, right? I don't have them down as one of my big. They fell out of the top 25, obviously. This team, they paid a lot of money. When Mark Richt decided to resign and retire, and we now know it's possible he knew he was sick at that point, and we do wish Mark Richt well as he battles Parkinson's, and he's still doing TV on the ACC network, so doing some good work there. Manny Diaz had gone to Temple as their head coach, and when Mark Richt had decided to retire, they paid a lot of money, I believe $4 million, to buy him out of his contract at Temple, Manny Diaz. And right now, they're not getting the job done. And the defense is the major transgressor of this. That's his domain. He actually took over the defensive coordinator duties again. And it has been an utter disaster this year so far. It's blown out by Alabama, barely beating a good Appalachian State team at home, and then just getting dismantled again at home against Michigan State, who's one of the big surprises this year, guys. Their new coach, Mel. What's Mel's name here? Hold on. Escaping me. Mel Tucker, a one and done guy at Colorado. What are they thinking out there? The Buffalo fans thinking that they let this guy get away. This team plays with his personality. They're playing really, really tough football on both sides of that line of scrimmage. And let's see what John's got to say. Canes need a good coach. Diaz is not the answer. I'm starting to feel the same way. I was happy John, I was very happy when, not that Mark Richt had resigned, but I was happy that Manny Diaz was going to be the next coach, but it's not working out. And it's turning out to be a huge, huge thing. Who do I think gets a USC job? I'll be honest with you. I said I've gone out on a limb here, and I said if I'm USC, I spend whatever it takes. I do whatever it takes to go to Bob Stoops' house and not leave there until he signs a contract to be my next head coach. Is it going to happen? I don't know. I got to believe probably if Bob Stoops was going to come back, he probably already would have. But this might be a spot that Bob Stoops would excel here. His personality, I think, is right for the job. He actually, he's kind of a Pete Carroll light in my mind. I love Bob Stoops, and I think he would be excellent at this university and get them back where they belong. But I don't know that can happen. James Franklin, I don't think James Franklin is leaving Penn State. So where does that leave them? I don't see Matt Campbell being a good fit in Los Angeles. The coach from BYU is another name that we hear a lot. I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Kalani Salaki, probably saying his name wrong. Maybe somebody can help me, but he's going to be mentioned prominently, especially since his team is the best team in the Pac-12 South, even though they don't play there. Here they're going after Matt Rule. That would be an interesting choice, and it might be one of the few schools that probably get Matt Rule out of the NFL. I don't think Matt Rule's leaving the NFL. I've said for a long time that I like Matt Rule, and I think he's going to be a really good NFL coach. And I think he's got the Panthers on the right path. Obviously, they're 2-0. But if he decided he wanted to return to college, they could do certainly worse than Matt Rule. Rick's talking about Jack Del Rio, USC alum. I'm not sure that I see Jack Del Rio at this point in his career being a candidate there. Not that he wouldn't want the job, but I don't know that they're going to go. I mean, Jack Del Rio is not a young guy, and I think they need. Well, then there's Bob Stoops, I guess, but he's not as old as Jack Del Rio. Good football coach, and if they want to stick, USC likes to go to their USC guys. They always have, and that might have changed a little bit since the Mike Garrett's and the Pat Haydens and Lynn Swans are not the ADs there anymore. They may not necessarily be dead set on a USC guy, but we'll see. Couple other things on the AP poll. I'm sorry, the coaches poll. Auburn drops 3 spots to 23. A game effort from Auburn at Penn State. Tough place to go play. I think Auburn will be heading in the right direction, but they're gonna have a tough time this year. UCLA really disappointed me last week. I've been talking them up since before the season. I really thought they'd turned a corner, getting off to a great start against Hawaii, and then a really nice win against an SEC team in LSU. And I don't know if it speaks to LSU's not being as good as people think. We'll find out about them. They've got a fairly big game at Mississippi State this weekend. And they'll be looking for some revenge. They got killed by Mississippi State last year. It'll be very interesting to see how UCLA rebounds themselves this week against Stanford. And again, I hate to pick against them, but right now, Stanford's playing some pretty good football, and they've got a really good coach. So it's going to be very interesting. UCLA, though, falls all the way to number 24. Virginia Tech drops 13 spots after getting beat by West Virginia at home. On the road. Virginia Tech never should have been a favorite in that game. Again, it'll be called an upset, but it's really not an upset. West Virginia's got a good football team, and go in there and lose. Are you kidding me, Rick? Honest to God. Wow. Why does Jack Del Rio feel like he's like 10 years older than Bob Stoops? Maybe because Bob Stoops hasn't been around in a while. Good catch. Guys, keep me on my toes. And Arizona State marks sleeper out west. 16 spots they fall and out of the top 25 altogether. A couple other topics. What do you guys got? You guys can throw anything you want at me here. I'm going to go through some games this weekend that we didn't touch on. I already touched on Lane Kiffin and Arch Manning. Could be very interesting, the recruiting of Arch Manning, right? I think it's going to be, it could be an unprecedented recruitment period for Arch Manning, who's still, see if this article tells me. I mean, I think he's only let's see what he is. Second high school season. He's 16 years old, guys. He's a sophomore in high school, and he's already being recruited heavily. I mean, that's not surprising, but he's been being recruited this way since he's in 8th grade. He's going to have unbelievable pressure on him, man, when he gets to the NCAA. He really is. Probably, and I know Rick thinks he's going to Georgia. I don't think anybody can predict where he's going to end up. SEC would be a good bet, given on his family's history. His grandfather played in the SEC at Ole Miss, obviously. His uncle Eli at Ole Miss. His uncle Peyton at Tennessee, and his dad Cooper at Mississippi. Cooper, by the way, guys, talking about college athletes, Cooper Manning was probably the best, most talented. He wasn't a quarterback. He's a wide receiver, and he got hurt during his college career, but he was probably the best athlete of all the Manning brothers. And if he'd stayed healthy, who knows? Let's see what John's got something to say here about Arch has it all: size, arm, pedigree. You know, maybe, hopefully, that stuff's all good too. But he better have, the right demeanor, the right fortitude, because the pressure on this kid is going to be amazing. That's why he may not go to Ole Miss, and he may stay out of the SEC altogether. I don't know, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for this kid wherever he goes. And especially if he stays in the SEC or goes to one of the schools that is, his family's been at Ole Miss and Tennessee only. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. I do agree that the kid has got everything going for him, John. Be very interesting to see what happens there. Let's take a quick look at some of the games this weekend that we didn't talk about with Mark Mancini. We'll just go through them quickly. If you guys got some things you want to chat about, games you're interested in, we'll chat about them. In the top 25, not a lot of big games. Georgia's got Vanderbilt. It's almost a bye week. Rick, you're traveling to Vanderbilt. You should be in great shape. Penn State's got Villanova. Wisconsin and Notre Dame, the big game of the weekend. On my mind, both these teams need this victory badly. Wisconsin, after losing at home to Penn State, they can get themselves the ship righted a little bit if they can win this game being played at Soldier Field. And Notre Dame, if they want to show that they're a legitimate contender, this is a place they've got to step up and win this game. This is a game, again, if Notre Dame doesn't win by 25 points, this isn't a big deal in this game. You can win this game by 1, and it's a good victory. But it's a place I think Notre Dame has certainly got to step up. Coastal Carolina gets UMass. Coastal Carolina having another good season. Hasn't really played anybody yet, but no, how can you not love the Coastal Carolina story? I did have Army to bring up, so I'm glad you brought them up, Rick. We'll talk about that right now. They do have Miami of Ohio. Jeff Monken, great job. That game is at Army, by the way. And I say it every week, guys. If you get any chance to go to a football game and want to go through, just live through a great experience, go to West Point and watch Army play a home game. But get there early and watch all of the pomp and circumstance that goes on. Staying with the armed services teams, Navy will be playing at Houston. Navy's going through a tough time right now, but I'm confident that at some point they'll get it back going because they've had a great run over the years with, and I'll never say his name right. Ken. Numa Hatola. Can't say his name. Never could, never will. Great football coach. Had a couple chances to leave. Had a chance to go to Arizona State. Had a chance to go to Houston. Had a chance to go to Georgia Tech. Took one of those jobs, I think, and actually reneged and went back to Navy. He's done a great job, and I think he'll get them back straightened out. How great would it be, by the way, just to switch gears for a second? I talked about this last week, and with all the realignment going on, whatever you think about the realignment, the AAC is really going to be depleted when Cincinnati leaves and Houston leaves and Central Florida leaves for the Big 12. And I really still think it'd be really cool if one of the things that they did is they try to fix now their problems and bring teams in, and they've got to rate other conferences. I said this last week, and I just think it'd be cool if they brought Army in. Army's an independent. Bring in Navy. Navy's already there. Sorry. Bring in Army and bring in Air Force. Air Force, where are they currently playing? I know they've changed conferences here and there. They're where are they now? The Mountain. I think they're in the Mountain. Yeah, the Mountain part of the Mountain West Conference. The Air Force is on a bit of a downswing too, but I just think it would be so cool to put those three teams in the same league. I think it'd be a smart move for the AC or somebody else to consider at some point. And you guys got an opinion on that? You can certainly speak up. What else we got going on this weekend? I mentioned that game. Iowa's got a breeze at home, most likely against Colorado State. Texas A&M and Arkansas, we talked about. This is going to be a big game for both these teams. Texas A&M just sitting on the outside of the top four. This would be a very big win for them, and it would be a signature win for Arkansas. Arkansas wins this game. They're going to show that they're for real in the SEC this year. Clemson's got to really be careful against this dangerous North Carolina State team. It's going to be very interesting what goes on. Clemson has really, really struggled on offense this year. I think they've got one passing touchdown. Man, you know what? They thought they were going to go seamlessly from Trevor Lawrence to DJ. You know who I mean. And it hasn't happened. He has not played as well as he played when he stepped in for Lawrence last year, partly because they don't have the parts around him, of course. Iowa State, one of my sleeper teams in the beginning of the year, will play a 3-0 Baylor team at home. I'm sorry, at Baylor. And they better be wary there. Rutgers, as I said, I think will lose to Michigan, but I think they'll be in a position to win the game. Late. Auburn with an easy win against Georgia State, I would say. UCLA, Stanford. I know Mark picked Stanford to win this game. I'm gonna go with UCLA to bounce back in this game. I just feel like they're too good. And I think last week was it was a shame the way they let that game get away from them. Florida, Tennessee. Florida's got to be careful of a hangover here. Tennessee's 2-1. They lost to Pittsburgh, which doesn't look so great with Pittsburgh's loss last week. But Tennessee is starting to make some improvements with Josh Heupel there, and I don't know that they're ready to compete and win at Florida, but we'll see how that goes. Here's a man after my own heart. Jeff, hope I say your name right, Jeff. Makara, hope I'm saying your name right. If I'm not, yell at me. Send me an email. Jeff loves the AAC. I do too. I think it's a very underrated. In some ways, I think it might be better in the Pac-12, deeper. But Jeff loves the AAC. Navy will struggle again the rest of the year. Unfortunately, I agree. They got a couple of years of rebuilding ahead of them, but I think they will get it back together. Third-rated, most difficult schedule. They always play a tough schedule. Navy. Army has to be near the bottom. But Army's an independent. I'd love to see him in the A's. I'd love you'd love to see the Army join the AAC. Good call. Air Force too, Jeff. Are you on board with me with all three of the major armed forces football teams getting in that same league. I think it would be just awesome. For me, it'd be awesome to see these teams battle it out. They play each other anyway all year, every year. And I just think it would be cool to see them in the same league. So thanks for joining us, by the way, Jeff. I hope you're following TGI Sports Talk and will like and share the page. And guys, I hope you all of you will invite your friends to follow, like and follow TGI Sports Talk. That's how we'll grow. We're getting there. Going to push towards 2,000 by the end of the year. What else we got going on this weekend? Interesting game, I guess. Nebraska gave Oklahoma a scare last week. They play a very underrated Michigan State team. They've come out of nowhere to get into the top 20, top 25 anyway. The game's at Michigan State. Michigan State wants to show they're for real. They cannot lose this game to a really bad Nebraska team. Oh, thank you, John Gonzalez, very much. So I love, John's, by the way, John's a great friend of the show. I said this earlier, and I don't, not to kiss up to John, I promise you, but John's people at the Sports Authority, awesome people, some great posts. There's fun. There's nostalgia posts there. He lets us post. There's my show and other shows that air there. So guys, get over there, join the Sports Authorities as well, because that's a great group that John's running over there. Interesting game. Kansas State, again, we talk about preseason polls. This team wasn't in the top 60, I don't think. They won their opener against Stanford, and Stanford was kind of belittled for losing that game at Kansas State. But they're in the top 25 now, and they've got an interesting game against 3-0 Oklahoma State. It's got a very interesting Big 12 matchup here at 7 o'clock Saturday. That's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to take Oklahoma State at home to win this game. Alabama should roll over Southern Miss. Oklahoma better not sleep. They're back at home. They're playing West Virginia, who's off a big win over Virginia Tech at home last week. And they better not take West Virginia lightly. Oklahoma has struggled all year long. They have not really gotten it together in any of their games, and almost lost to Tulane and almost lost to Nebraska. Excellent. I finally said our name right. Nice to see a Tampa representing, and a Penn State alum. Nice win last week, by the way, and a horrible, if you weren't with us earlier, by the way, Jeff, great win for Penn State. I like what James Franklin's got going there this year. But a horrible call, the targeting call late in that game, as we talked about earlier. So John Gonzalez likes Spencer Rattler. Spencer has struggled a little bit this year. Again, well, struggled. He's got 7 touchdown passes, but, he's completed 74 out of 99 passes for 761 yards and 7 touchdowns. But you read like he's struggling. That's what's expected of big name quarterbacks now. There was a time in college football, those numbers over a half a season or an entire season would have been tremendous. Spencer Rattler's a really good quarterback. John, I don't know if you've watched when I've talked about this show before, but Spencer Rattler was featured in a Netflix docuseries called QB1. It's a show, and they didn't have it last year because of COVID, obviously. But they follow these top recruited college football players, quarterbacks, through their senior years in high school. Some of them have committed. Some of them are waiting to commit. And I think there's 3 seasons of it. It's really a fun watch if you like that type of thing. It's really interesting to see behind the scenes a little bit. You get to know these kids. Shane Rattler actually did not finish his senior year in high school. We still don't know. It's a big mystery about why he was gone before they completed the filming of the series and his team's season. So he was considered a bit of a character question, but there's been that I'm aware of. There's been no question about his character at OU, and he's obviously played pretty well. He got off to a bad start, I think, against Tulane, but threw a couple interceptions. But again, he's going to be a major contender for the Heisman. I really like Rattler. I like Corral from Ole Miss, as I said, and Bryce Young. Have got to be the three guys that are probably going to be right now, probably the front runners for the Heisman. You're probably right. Rattler will be a top 10 pick in the NFL. Probably, let's see, what is he? He's a red shirt. I think he's a red shirt. Not sure if he's a junior or not. I think he might only be a sophomore. I don't even know if he can come out yet, John. But when he does get to that point, assuming his career continues along the way it has, he would likely be a top 10 pick. But who knows? Ohio State gets a bye with Akron. North Carolina, after a big win over Virginia, I thought Virginia would give North Carolina a tussle last week. Didn't happen. They scored 59 points, I think, and really dismantled Virginia. A pretty good Virginia team, I thought, coached by Brock Mendenhall, but North Carolina gets themselves righted with their second win in a row. They got Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech. Not a very good football team, regardless of their performance against Clemson and almost beating them last week. BYU, to me, one of the most underrated teams in the country, up to number, all the way up to number 16 in the coaches poll this last week, 3-0, and leading the Pac-12 South, I say sarcastically, as they have more wins than anybody there, and they keep beating teams in the South. Sam Howell is actually a very good quarterback too, John. He was my preseason pick for the Heisman, and he got off to such a bad start against Vatek that I kind of took him out of the running. He can get himself back in there, of course. I mean, his numbers, he's got 9 touchdown passes. You know, it's too funny. You think these guys are playing poorly, but the game is played so differently today, right, than even 10 years ago. Much less 30 years ago. You know, these guys are throwing for astronomical amount of yards and touchdowns. It's basically the NFL. They're all playing pro style offenses, and most of them. And these quarterbacks are all putting up some huge numbers. BYU's quarterback has got 7 touchdown passes and 600 yards passing. So anyway, I like BYU in that game. Oregon has got Arizona. Arizona's a complete mess. I was hopeful that, for them, because I liked their head coach. They hired the Patriots quarterback coach from the last couple of years, Jed Fish. He has not been able to make any kind of headway there yet. Arizona's just been a disaster now for a decade, if I'm not exaggerating. But I don't see them. Obviously, Oregon should just roll here, and Oregon needs to roll. Oregon's going to have a tough time because of, again, the inconsistencies of the Pac-12. It's Oregon and everybody else, and I thought they were making moves forward. I thought UCLA was going to make a big run this year. Still could. I mean, it's a non-league loss, but again, UCLA with one loss, winning the Pac-12 championship, is not making a playoff. They had to be undefeated. And all these teams losing, Arizona State, Stanford, USC to Stanford a couple of weeks ago. This all hurts Oregon, because this league has been pulling down the best team in that league for years, or most years, when it comes to the playoff. So Oregon really needs to continue to win and win big. Anything off the top? We know we mentioned the service academies. Any other games out of the top 25 you guys are interested in? Carlos isn't with us. His Middle Tennessee team is 1-2. They got Charlotte this week. Wake Forest, Virginia. Interesting game. Wake Forest off to a 3-0 start. I think we'll get I definitely want to get Larry Sorensen in next week, the color analyst from Wake Forest, and talk about Wake Forest and the ACC, or get us up to date. He hasn't been on in a couple of weeks. This will be an interesting matchup for Wake Forest after beating Florida State last week. It'd be an interesting game for them going to Virginia. If they win this game, hey, ACC is wide open, guys. Wide open. Clemson's in a position to get beat. Liberty, Syracuse. Syracuse is, this game's at home. I think Liberty's going to beat Syracuse in this game. I talked about Fresno State being my solid dead bolt lock, whatever you want to call it. LSU at Mississippi State, I talked about a little bit. We're going to find out about both these teams this week. They're both 2-1. Last year, Mississippi State dismantled LSU, and we found out then and there that the reigning champions were not even any semblance of the team that they were the year before. And I'm not so sure that they've made that many strides back to that level. Boston College, 3-0. Interesting game with Missouri or Missouri, depending on what part of the state you're from. Pittsburgh, New Hampshire. I know Mark went with Pittsburgh this week. They better rebound or the season might be over for them. Vatech with Richmond. They should win at home. Trying to find some other games. Oh, here's an interesting game. Jeff Makara, if you're still here with me. Very interesting game. If you love the AAC, this is an interesting game. SMU at TCU. SMU's 3-0 after a miraculous finish last week with a Hail Mary to win the game. But again, a well-coached team by Sonny Dykes and an exciting team to watch. That whole league is exciting. Memphis. How about the Memphis win against Mississippi State last week? Mississippi State doesn't down the punt, and the kid from Memphis picks it up at his, his 10, and easily returns it for a touchdown to win the game. That's a game-deciding play. Crazy stuff happens in that AAC. I love it. Texas Tech at Texas. Interesting matchup there. Texas with Steve Scarsazians. We're thinking they're back. Arkansas beat them up a couple of weeks ago. Texas Tech's 3-0. Be a very interesting game at Texas for this game in Austin. We talked about Army. Boise State played better football. They got beat last week. I shouldn't say they're playing better football. They've got Utah State. That's always an interesting league. Miami, John Gonzalez. If our Miami Hurricanes don't win by about 50 this week against Central Connecticut, and Manny Diaz ought to get fired on the spot. Coastal Carolina, we talked about. Toledo, Ball State. Washington State, Utah. Utah was supposed to be a very good team. Again, these preseason rankings, I think they were in the top 15 or around it in some of the polls, and they're 1-2, lost to BYU. As I said, BYU controls that Pac-12 South. Iowa should have a cakewalk. Looking for some other games of interest here. I don't really have Memphis. Again, talking about the AAC, and Memphis is 3-0 after that miraculous win last week. Florida State and Louisville. Louisville's playing much better after getting beat badly by Ole Miss to start the season. Florida State, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know whether – I thought they made a really good hire with Mike Norvell, who came from Memphis. And they played a really good game and came back to force overtime against Notre Dame. And since then, they've fallen apart. Lost to Jacksonville State, unforgivable. And they lost to Wake Forest last week, which never could have happened back in their heyday. Florida State may not be able to get this back together. And I'm not so sure Norvell's the guy to do it now. This is, I don't know what it's going to take for Florida State to get back, where they were under Bobby Bound and then Jimbo Fisher. They've gone through 3 coaches now. This is their 3rd coach since Jimbo. And they just cannot seem to get it turned around. I'm not sure that they're ever going to. What else? Anything else? Let's see. I got nothing else I don't think that I really care that much about. Talked about most of these games that mean something. It's fun. we'll go through these scores next week. We talked a bit about the Heisman Watch. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. This is an evolving thing, right? You got favorites, they fall off, they come back. Sam Howell, John Gonzalez mentioned, very well could get back in the race now that he's back. North Carolina's back winning games. He's back playing well after getting knocked off course by Virginia Tech. Tough spot to start the season for North Carolina. Oh gosh, what else, guys? What else we got going on here? How about this? How about? And I like your opinions on this if you're still with me. So here's the teams that to me are they showed themselves to be pretenders last week, or they showed themselves to be contenders. On the contender side, I think BYU really showed last week and have shown several times as they've beaten 3 teams now from the Pacific 12 or Pac-12. As an independent, they play one of the toughest schedules in football. And I think they've made themselves a contender. If somebody from that group of 5 or that group of 6, if we count the independents, right, is going to make a run, it might be BYU or Cincinnati, obviously, who's undefeated. Watch out for BYU coming up quickly. And as I said, Cincinnati just keeps getting bypassed in the top 10. It's just crazy. Ole Miss, I think, has shown that they're for real. Arkansas, I think this week will show whether they're a contender or a pretender. And then Michigan State, I got to see a little bit more from them and see what they do once they get a little bit deeper into conference play. The pretenders to me that were obviously exposed last week, UCLA, who I was all over, Arizona State, who Mark Mancini was all over. He loved their chances. I just think Arizona State, I love Herm Edwards. But I think all the stuff surrounding the program with some of the allegations and the coaches, 4 or 5 coaches had to leave, whether let go or left of their own volition because of the investigation that's going on out there by the NCAA. I just thought it was too much for that program to overcome. And Virginia Tech losing to West Virginia shows that they are not somebody that's going to be a contender. To me, those were the winners and the losers out of last week's games. You could look at Florida as being a winner potentially, showing that Indiana is vulnerable. And I think it's possible that they will pull an upset there. So lots to talk about, guys. We're going to talk more about, ranking some of the conferences. I didn't get that this week. We will next week, I promise you. We'll get to more of that as we get deeper into the season. We're going to talk more about the Heisman. We're going to talk more about some of the top jobs as they start to see. USC obviously is open, and we'll continue to talk about that as we did tonight. But I hope you guys will like and share the show. Get your friends, invite them to TGI Sports Talk. I love doing this show. Remember, we've got Ed White, former All-American at Cal University and All-Pro, should be Hall of Famer with the Minnesota Vikings and later the San Diego Chargers. And the NFL will be my guest on Friday's interview show. And then Sunday, we've got our Sunday Stream of Consciousness. Mark Mancini will join us for a half an hour, the last half hour of that show as well. So, guys, thanks for coming in today. All of you that participated. My regulars, obviously, and Mickey and David and Rick. John Gonzalez, again, thank you. Jeff, thank you for coming in. Makara, happy to have you in. Hope we see more of you on the shows. Love having guys from Tampa. And I love the AAC as well. So, guys, Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk, right here in the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. I will see you later. Have a great evening. Bye-bye, guys.